Hey, what's up, guys? Graylan Stewart here. I am going to give you exactly what you've been wanting. So, this is going to be a free, 100% free training, step by step, on how to wholesale real estate. All right, guys, so let's get into it. So, welcome to my free wholesaling real estate training. Now, this is going to be a 3-part series. So, you'll have video 1, 2, and 3. Okay, I broke it up into 3 videos because nobody wants to watch, 1 hour or 1.5 hour or 2 hour video. I don't know how long this is going to be, but to give you all the information and all the value and everything that you need step by step, I wanted to break it up so that you're not watching some long, boring video, okay? So while we're at it, let's go ahead and subscribe. If you haven't already, I would greatly appreciate it. I am giving you free info here, so the least you can do is hopefully subscribe, and I'd appreciate that a lot. So let's just go ahead and get into it. So again, welcome to my channel. Now, I am going to make some very strong promises to all of you during this free training, okay? Obviously, I will not be wasting your time. I'm not doing this to waste anyone's time. I'm trying to bring you 100% value so you can learn the ins and out of this game completely free, okay? So I don't have anything to sell you at all. I can promise you that. There's no pitch at the end or anything crazy, okay? I'm just strictly giving you value. No fluff and all value, guaranteed, okay? And obviously, I'm going to give it to you all for free. So again, if you haven't already, please subscribe. It would help me out. And just think of that as your payment to me for giving you all this free information, okay? So let's move on. So why are you watching? Any idea? I mean, maybe you're a current real estate investor or a wholesaler. I don't know. Maybe you have a job that you're sick of, the dreaded JOB. Some people have that as an acronym of just over broke. Maybe that's not true in your situation. I mean, when I had a job, I made $240,000 a year. So I wasn't just over broke, but at the same time, that job was still holding me back and keeping me from really making a difference in what I wanted to do in my life, okay? So maybe you are sick and tired of fulfilling your boss's dreams rather than your own as an entrepreneur. And maybe you just have a strong interest in real estate investing or wholesaling in general. I will tell you that wholesaling is the lowest barrier of entry to get into this game. But the bottom line is you want to do better things, okay? Bigger and better things. You want more out of life, and you just want to get into real estate. And wholesaling is the easiest way to do that. All right, so a little bit about me, just to give you some background on who I am, why I'm even bringing this to you, okay? So my name is Graylan Stewart. I am originally from Oklahoma, but I currently do live in Castle Rock, Colorado. Now, I did go back and forth for about 8 years. I literally lived in both states. So that's kind of my story, the short of it. I do try to keep God first in every aspect of my life. I do love to travel. I go as many family vacations as possible, and me and my wife try to take a trip or two by ourselves on occasion. And sometimes we just do, father or mother with child, type vacations as well. We love to travel is the bottom line. But I will tell you that mindset is everything in this business and in any entrepreneur journey for that matter. And I do strive to be the best at everything I do. Obviously, I'm not the best wholesaler in the world. I'm not claiming to be that, but I'm striving for that, So I traveled the world, on the USA tumbling team from 1992 to 2000. So during that time, I did win 16 national championships and actually won the silver medal at the World Championships in 1998. That was part of the USA team that year. And it was a great adventure, got to see a lot of the world. And I did graduate college in 1998, December of 98, with a bachelor's in health and phys ed. Now, I've worked 2 corporate jobs for about 12 years of my adult life after college. And then I obviously started my own business In 2011, my own marketing and advertising company. So I discovered wholesaling in September of 2018. So let me tell you how I discovered it and why. I mean, I was searching, I was burned out because I did that marketing and advertising gig selling yellow pages for almost 8 years. And then I started my own company, in 2011. So I'd done it for a while, 8 years, and then 11 to 18 is what, another 7. So 15 years selling to mom and pop businesses. I was just getting burned out and tired. So I was searching. So I finally discovered wholesaling real estate September of 2018. And I did close 7 deals my very first month of wholesaling. So I discovered it in September, started doing the advertising and all that stuff. I closed 7 deals in October, which is not typical. And I actually made over 140,000 my 5th month in the business, which is pretty much unheard of. So that was February of 2019. And then I actually became a millionaire in less than 2 years. Crazy, I know. Obviously not just wholesaling, but obviously I started keeping rentals along the way as well. Okay. So now me and my team virtually wholesale all over the United States, and we are actually one of those true virtual wholesaling teams. So what do I mean by that? There's virtual wholesalers out there that virtual wholesale locally to where they'll have their whole entire staff in one building, so they're all in there together with their culture and everything else, which is awesome. There's no right or wrong way of doing this business, but we actually are a completely virtual team. I live in Colorado. I've got staff members spread out the United States, and I actually have my assistant is in a different country. So so we are truly virtual wholesalers. Okay. Now, is your city the perfect real estate market for real estate wholesaling? And I will tell you, major cities, you're pretty good. Okay. But real estate investing in general is all about location. Okay. So I'm a very systems driven and strongly believe in automation and creating tools to make our lives easier. And real estate investing is no different. Obviously, if you have systems to help you out, things go smoother. Okay. Most investors will pick their areas to invest in by choosing the areas they want just simply because they know them well. That's typically how most people get started, in their own backyard, which is great. But if you live in a little bitty town, you might want to rethink that. Okay. Technically, they end up investing blind because they don't really know what they're doing. They just know that, hey, this is where I live, this is where I'm going. That's why 91% of investors fail, in my opinion. They lose money, go broke before they make it, and so on. So we don't want that to happen to you. That's why I'm bringing you this free training to make sure you do it the right way. Smart investors buy homes where they already know buyers are buying. Okay? I mean, that makes sense. Buy houses where you already know other buyers are buying. Okay? That means people are doing something there. There's activity in your area. Okay? So any idea what the hottest house flipping areas around you are? Any guess? Like I said, maybe you live in a big city. If you live in a big city, you're golden. There's most likely going to be good activity there. But if you're in a small suburb or some small town in a different state, you might not know. Okay, but you just got to look at the data. Okay, and this is exactly why we use DispoGameChanger.com. It's investor lift. Now, in our big city areas, we don't have to use that at all. And I'm not pitching that site at all. That is an affiliate site, but I'm not pitching that because I don't think you need that. If you're brand new to the business, you don't need it at all. But I'm just letting you know, if we get a deal in a small town, we're going to go to DispoGameChanger.com just to look up that property, make sure there's buyers even there. But if you're in a big city or there's a big city around you and that's where your property is, then you don't have to anything to worry about. Okay. So obviously there's different exit strategies in real estate. And there's 3 main ones. Okay. Wholesaling, which is what this video and this whole training is all about. There's wholesale. Okay. There's hotel and there's retail. Okay. What's the difference? We'll get into some of that later, but we're mostly talking about wholesaling. Okay. That's what this training is all about. But wholesale and retail, you probably are familiar with. Wholesaling is what we're talking about. Okay. Retailing is when you're rehabbing a property for rental or fix and flip. And hotel is kind of blending those two together. You're wholesaling for retail. Okay. Now, wholesaling is the process of putting the property under contract, then you assign that contract or resell the property to another investor at a higher price. That's wholesaling in a nutshell. For example, you find the house that you want to buy, okay? Numbers look good. You put the property under contract with the seller for $100,000, just for math and easy sake, okay? You instantly start marketing that contract, looking for a buyer at a higher price. So now you find a buyer at $110,000, so you can assign your original contract to the buyer you just found and keep the difference in the middle. $10,000 in this instance, with no money out of your pocket. You never closed on the property and you never had any risk. Okay, that's what wholesaling is. That's the beauty of it. That's why it's the lowest entry of barrier to get into real estate, because you don't really have to have money to do it. You just have to have a little knowledge. Okay, so look at this before and after picture. Obviously, it doesn't really look any different. It's different lighting, so it looks a little different because of that. But the house itself, as you can see, is exactly the same. Sure, there's a little bit of trash and debris moved off of the property, but other than that, it's the exact same house. Nothing's changed, okay? So flipping real estate without ever owning a house is technically what wholesaling is. All right? So, simple, right? Wholesaling real estate. So there's two ways. All right, I'm going to show you two different ways to wholesale a property. There's the wholesale assignment, and that is when you have a seller. Obviously, you have to have a seller to start this process. Then you, the wholesaler, are in the middle. You're the middleman making that money in the middle, and then there's an end buyer. So you get the property under contract with the seller. You're the wholesaler doing that, and then now you're finding a buyer to take your position in that contract. Okay. There's also the wholesaling double close. You got the seller, the wholesaler, which is you. Now you've got money involved, okay? Double close meaning you are closing on it as the wholesaler, whether you're using private money or transactional funding, or in some states, they don't even make you do that. They let you use the buyer's end money to fund the deal, okay? Nevertheless, we won't get into the weeds on that, but double closing, there's a seller, a wholesaler, money in the middle, and then a buyer, okay? And the reason there's two different things, a wholesale assignment in most cases, if it's $10,000 or $15,000 profit, most people are okay with somebody making that money. Okay. Now you start getting into $15,000, $20,000, $25,000, $30,000 assignment fees. A lot of times your buyer could balk at that or get upset that you're making, a lot of money on the deal, because they're the one putting all the money, all the work in flipping the property later. They don't want you to make a lot. That's why we have double closes. So in my suggestion, anything over 15,000, maybe 20,000, you want a double close. Okay, that way you just don't have any issues. It's just kind of keeps that secret until the closing's done. They find out later, but not beforehand. Okay. All right. So there's a major problem with wholesaling though, and almost everyone is doing it wrong and or illegal. Okay. So the two major problems are they put a bunch of properties under contract, which they're tying up, the contract, tying up the seller to where they can't sell it to anyone else. You're kind of holding them hostage almost. And then you end up not being able to find an end buyer to wholesale it to someone, and then you don't close on the property. And you had an agreement to fulfill this contract, okay? And that's wrong, If you don't have the funds to close, then you shouldn't put a property under contract. Or if you know that it's a really good deal to where you pretty much are guaranteed you're going to find a buyer, okay? Hopefully that makes sense. So the second way is they market, for their investors to buy. They do it illegally because they're actually marketing the house itself, okay? And you can't market the house that you don't own, okay? You need to be marketing the contract. That's why it's wholesaling. You're wholesaling houses, but you're really just flipping paper is really what it is. You're selling your contract. So you can't do it the wrong way. You can't market a property. You can market a contract. Or you're talking about that property, but you're saying that this is an assignment of contract. Okay. Hopefully that makes sense. So who gauges this and who follows through with all these guidelines? There is a wholesaling police, or is there? Yes, there is. Okay. It's your real estate commission, the local real estate commission that every community has. Okay. Now, somebody could file a complaint on you, or they could just be out searching for people, doing things wrong. And that's exactly why wholesaling is already illegal in at least 2 states that I know of, Illinois and Oklahoma. Now, Oklahoma, it just now happened recently. So those 2 states right there, you're not supposed to wholesale. And I think that it might be in another state or two, but I'm not real sure. But don't let that stop you, okay? So a lot of times in this business, you'll have limiting beliefs. You'll see something that's amazing and great, but your mind keeps you away from it. So that's why I said mindset is everything. So don't let limiting beliefs stop you from doing things, okay? But when you do it right, you can have big fat checks like this. I mean, check it out. This was February of 19. So this is exactly what I was talking about. I made 6 figures my 5th month in the business. Stewart Marketing is kind of the company that I was using, to close all my deals, because that was my marketing company name. That's the only LLC I had at that time. Okay. And what if you could do 2 of them? I made $62,000 7 days later with another deal that we had. There it is, Stewart Marketing, and this was actually Stewart Title on this one, on this escrow one, okay? So wholesaling is just one way to make money in real estate. Is there anyone watching that is an excuse maker? Because there's always someone out there like that. Because real estate really is all about win-win situations. That's really what we're trying to do. That's the whole goal. It's a win when you're wholesaling a deal, because the seller obviously wants to sell the property for a certain price, okay? So you're giving them that price in our example earlier, $100,000. And, a buyer wants that property as well. They're glad to get a smoking deal from you for $110,000. So there's another win. And then you win because you made that 10 grand in the middle. But the winning doesn't even stop there. The title company wins too, because they're getting another deal that get to close on. And then your flipper is going to end up using all kinds of different contractors and places, to where everybody's winning all around. Okay. So how many of you are win-win people? That's the question. How many of you are willing to do what it takes to be successful? Because this business is not easy. I mean, it's simple in concept, because you get a seller, contract with a seller, you market that contract to searching for a buyer, and then you get paid in the middle, okay? It's simple in concept, but it's not easy. You got to be willing to do, to have dedication, to have grit, to do whatever it takes to make things happen. It's not going to happen on its own. Okay. So let's go ahead. So this is an X-Mind map. So hopefully you can follow along. I think these are a little bit easier to visualize and see and kind of go as I go. Okay. So let's do a quick refresher on wholesale and real estate. Okay. So there's 3 exit strategies on flipping houses. All right. So we are talking about wholesaling, hoteling, and retailing. Okay. Now, wholesaling real estate is exactly what we talked about, where you can get a contract with a seller and you find a buyer, and then you wholesale that property to the buyer. Okay. Now, hoteling is a little different. You're closing on the property and selling it on the MLS as is. And then retail is a given. You're rehabbing that property to rent or to fix and flip. Okay. Now, the assignment, we talked about that, the seller, wholesaler, and the buyer. Okay. And the double close is when you have a seller, wholesaler, and then the money, and then a buyer. Okay. And the reason we do double closes is simply to hide your fee. So the only reason you would want to hide your fee is because sometimes buyers just can't get over the fact that you're making a lot of money on a deal. So just to keep it safe, and some buyers, they'll all tell you that they don't care. But in reality, when they see that you're making $30,000 or $20,000, sometimes buyers get offended by that, because they're actually giving the risk, taking all the risk, and putting the money into it, and maybe making 40 or 50,000. And if you're making 30, just wholesaling it to them, sometimes they don't like that too much. So that's why we double close. Okay. Otherwise, just assignments are fine. All right. So let's go ahead and get through this. So starting the process to find deals, okay, is really step 1. It's marketing, because without bringing in leads, you have nothing to work with, okay? So first, we have to establish want versus need, all right? So how do we do that? Does a seller want to sell or do they need to sell? There is a big difference, and you'll find that out right here, okay? So when they want to sell, the seller that wants to sell is typically a seller that doesn't have a distress. They just want to sell their house. That's it, okay? They'll always be wanting retail or just shy of retail if not, okay? And they typically just list their house with a realtor. That's just what they do because they want to sell and they usually want top dollar. Now, they are not the type of person that wants or needs our help, typically, okay? Not always, but typically that's just the way it goes, okay? Just remember, we're in the business of solving problems, those win-win situations that I talked about, okay? Because if you can't solve a problem, then you probably can't do anything. So if they just want to sell, unless you're a realtor, you can't solve their problem. And in this case, we are wholesalers looking to solve problems, okay? So therefore, we need sellers that actually need to sell, okay? Not just want. Now, they are going to want to sell that house, but they have to need to sell it, okay? So let's go over that. Now, there's at least 13 different reasons a seller would actually need to sell. But going up here, a seller that needs to sell is a seller who truly is motivated and needs help right now or will need help in the near future, okay? So let's go over what I've got in here. So need to sell now, okay? Set the appointment and go see the property, okay? Whether you're doing this over the phone or you're going in face-to-face. If they need to sell now, you do whatever you can to get that appointment right away. So if you're already on the phone with them, keep them on the phone and get all the information that you need and get that deal, okay? So if they need to sell in the future, obviously follow-up is key. I've talked about that many, many times over throughout a bunch of my videos because without follow-up, you're really dead in the water. You will not be successful if you can't learn to follow up. I promise you that right now. So follow-up is key. Trust me. We have to fight, literally fight to be top of mind for these sellers. So how do we fight to do that? Obviously, it's through marketing. We have to stay in front of them, whether that's marketing through paid advertising of some sort to be omnipresent, through Facebook or Google or whatever it is, or is that you physically picking up a phone and calling them or texting them and those kind of things, okay? So let's go over these 13 reasons why someone would need to sell. Now, there could be more, but these are just the 13 that I have down here, okay? So obviously, if they're deceased, they're going to need to sell, okay? So when there's a dead person involved and they're deceased, there's usually probate or they inherited the property, okay? Now, probate, most wholesalers do probate wrong. And let me tell you why. Because if you think about it, direct mail versus a personal relationship, what would you rather have? So let's just think about this real quick. So you just lost a family member and you got a direct mail postcard saying, hey, basically we know that your family member died. Sorry about that, but hey, will you sell me their house? That's the wrong way to go about it. Or texting someone, right after that happened, or cold calling them or whatever it is, that's really wrong. But what if you had a personal relationship with a probate attorney, or something like that? That's a little bit easier, a little less intrusive, those kind of things. So that's just something to think about as we go. But obviously a deceased person, it's either going to be probate or someone's going to inherit that property. So those are great people that would actually need to sell, right? So delinquent property tax is a huge one. It's generally always a free and clear house, which is awesome. And they could lose their house at the tax sale. So how do I know that it's generally free and clear? So if you think about it, if you have a mortgage, which most people probably do watching this, but if you don't, I'll let you know. I'll inform you. So when you have a mortgage, typically you escrow your taxes and your insurance through the mortgage, okay? So that way you make one payment to the bank, but that's going to include the mortgage, your insurance, and your taxes is typically how that's done, okay? So the reason that people end up losing their house to tax sale is because they don't have anything escrowed through a mortgage company. So there's no one to really hold them accountable. So it's kind of out of sight, out of mind, if you will. So those are generally free and clear because there's nothing to escrow. They're not making any payments. So if you're not making monthly payments on your taxes or on your insurance, typically they don't pay them at all a lot of times, and that's why they end up in delinquent property tax situations. Okay, so obviously if you're getting divorced, you're going to need to sell, right? uh, they can't afford it on one income, or they need to get their ex off the mortgage. Nevertheless, almost every time if someone's going through a divorce, they're going to need to sell their property. Okay, so that's a great list that you could purchase out there. Okay, now if someone owns a property out of state, that's what we call absentee owners, and I've done a video on actually how to pull an absentee owner list off of PropStream. So I do have an affiliate link down below if you want to click on that to check it out. You can, because that's actually how you find absentee owners. And all that means is it's just an owner that doesn't live there. Okay, it doesn't even necessarily have to be out of state. Anyways, behind on mortgage payment, obviously, if they're in pre-foreclosure, not already foreclosed, because if they're already foreclosed, it's kind of too late as a wholesaler, at least, to help them out. But if they're in pre-foreclosures, meaning they're getting notifications from their bank that they've got a certain amount of days, before they're going to sell the house or whatever it is, take it back over. Obviously, those people are pretty motivated and they actually need to sell, right? So if you own a property free and clear, obviously that's not really a big motivation, but you just need to combine that with another list. Sometimes we call that list stacking. Owning their property free and clear is awesome because they have equity, which is what you need when you're wholesaling real estate. You have to have equity to do a traditional wholesaling real estate deal, okay? But, keep in mind, you have to combine that with another list. So if someone loses their job, obviously there's motivation there and they're going to need to sell. Because typically, if you lose your job but you can't make payments, if you can't make payments, bank's going to take your house, right? So if you're being relocated, that's a given. They're going to want to avoid two mortgages, right? If they're moving across state or across town or across country, whatever the case, they don't want two mortgages. Bankruptcy is self-explanatory. Obviously, if they're filing bankruptcy, they need to sell ASAP, okay? If it's a vacant house, those are great and they're very easy to spot. But vacant houses are the best because they're easy to show, typically easy to purchase because those people need to sell. They may not know they need to sell a lot of times till they think about it or till you inform them. But typically these houses are easy to spot, and here's how. They're a lot of times boarded up where they've got overgrown lawn and landscape. They've got notes on the doors or windows or notices from the city, different things like that. Or overstuffed mailboxes is a good telltale. Or you can just tell that it's in dire need of repairs compared to nearby houses. Sometimes they'll have even tarps on the roof and things like that. So vacant houses are typically super easy to spot. Now, landlords, why would a landlord need to sell? Here's why. Some of the landlords are tired, and I've talked about this tired list. Tired landlord list. They're just sick of landlording, or their tenants are not paying, or maybe they're an accidental landlord. So the people that were lucky enough to afford, when they got relocated, they weren't able to sell their house, so they just kept paying for their other house and found a renter, to help them pay that payment. But they never wanted to be a landlord, so I call those accidental landlords. So these people are truly motivated typically, okay? Fire damage house, obviously, they're going to need to sell because the house is damaged. And they usually sell those really cheap because they got the insurance money already. So anything they get from a wholesaler is just extra because they're usually getting all their money back from insurance, okay? So if an owner has an illness, they typically need to sell because they've got medical bills and things like that. Or maybe they're going into a nursing home. So this is a good tip here. If you can build relationships with nursing homes, that could really help you as well. If you have different managers that you can kind of befriend at these nursing homes in your local area, that could go a long way because they a lot of times know of houses. Those houses help them out because those are how these people actually pay for their services. So Anyway, so who do you know? That's really the bottom line. It's always good when you first get started with personal relationships, because you might have somebody in your circle that needs to sell. So who do you know that's going through a divorce, or is an accidental landlord, or maybe they're sick, or maybe they have a vacant house, or going through bankruptcy, or they recently got relocated, or maybe they lost their job. Any of these situations here, many times someone. So just kind of think of that in the back of your mind. Oftentimes that can be your first deal, just people in your inner circle, okay? And they can help you get warm intros. That's always great. If your mom has a friend that has a vacant house and it's just a headache to them, have your mom introduce you to that friend, and that's how you can get going right there. Okay, so obviously these are the types of people that we're looking for as real estate investors and as wholesalers in general. That's how you get discounted off market properties. Okay, you kind of search for these 13 main groups of people. Okay, all right, so let's move on. So what do you do when you actually find these deals? Let's go over that. So obviously you're gonna have to negotiate with sellers. Okay, so let's go over how to negotiate. Obviously you might want a seller script, a script of some sort. When I first started, obviously I didn't have a script, and you don't either. And I will offer you a free script, a script that made me hundreds of thousands of dollars that I used in my everyday business. So how did I get that script? The way I did it was I just compiled a bunch of other people's scripts that I kind of knew and gained over time, or even Googled some, and I just kind of made my own. So what made sense to me, and it worked really well. So if you want my script, I'll give it to you for free. So just look in the comments or send me a DM or whatever it is. But anyway, so when you're negotiating with a seller, obviously there's some main things that we have to get from these people. We got to get their motivation. Okay, that's the main key. Like, they're probably going to fall into one of those 13 categories we just discussed. We got to get the condition of the house. Their timeline is important. The price we want to get out of them, and then be able to listen more than we talk. Okay, so gaining motivation. Establish if they want or they need to sell. Okay, if they truly need to sell, let's get it going. Okay, so get into the condition. Always remember the major things and the cosmetic things. But this is what we do in our business. Our acquisition managers are really good at finding these 5 major things, because ultimately the condition of the house is going to tell you how much you can pay for it. Okay, and you don't want just the condition, but you want the age of these major things. Okay, so these major things on every house, you need to know the foundation, the HVAC, the roof, the electrical, and the plumbing. Okay, let's go over that a little bit. So foundation, there's 2 different types of foundation. There's slab, where it's just cement, and then there's pier and beam, to where you have crawl spaces under the house. And sometimes there's a combination of both of those. But you want to know, is the foundation sound? Is there any cracks or crevices or slopes in the flooring or anything like that? Okay, you want to ask those questions, detailed questions, and if there is, how long has it been like that? Okay, now HVAC, that's your heat and air system. Do they have central heat and air, or are they using gas heaters on the wall? Are they using air conditioning window units? What is it? How old is it? On top of that, okay. Now the roof, what type of roof is it, and how old is it? When was the last time it was replaced? They might say, "Oh yeah, it's in perfect condition and it's great." Okay, that's cool, and that may be true, but if it's 20 years old, it's probably on its last leg. So that's why age is also important. Now the electrical and plumbing is also important. If it's an older house, a lot of times flippers have to replace the electrical and plumbing just to bring it up to code. Okay, because if they're flipping the house, there's obviously going to be inspections, and sometimes those older electrical panels and things like that just won't pass inspection. And the plumbing is the same way. It could be old and corroded. Some of those older style things. New stuff is like PEX plumbing is what is pretty much needed these days. So anyways, now the cosmetic things that you want to look for, a good question to ask is, has there been any updates within the last 5 years, and then specifically any updates to the kitchen or the bathrooms? Okay, Kitchens, you're looking for cabinets and countertops is the main things. Okay, obviously the flooring, in the bathrooms, like I already mentioned. Do the ceilings leak anywhere? Are there holes in the walls or doors? Is there any missing trim? Anything like that? Any kind of condition cosmetically that you can gather will greatly help you. Now, keep in mind, you're kind of fact finding. You're gathering all this information here because that's going to give you ammo on what your offer is. Because remember, we're giving offers based on the condition of the property. Okay, so the next thing we need is timeline. And a good question to ask is, when they're actually looking to sell, a week, a month, a couple months, it just gives you an idea of motivation. If they say, yeah, we might sell in 6 months, and they're probably not super motivated right now. But if they're like, yeah, we got to sell this ASAP because we got this situation. So then they're more motivated. Okay, so that just kind of helps you with that motivation piece. Now, price, obviously, do your best to have them tell you the price. Okay. We always want to try to get price out of people if possible, but it's not always possible, and that's okay. Just do your best, and if you can get it, great. Here's an example. If I were to pay cash, pay all closing costs, and you choose the closing date, what's the best price you could do? Sometimes they might say, well, you're calling me, you tell me or whatever. Sometimes they won't do it. And most of the time I'll tell you that they're not going to give you the price. But if you can get it out of them, great. If you can't, just remember you want to anchor low on that price after you gather all this information, okay? So when you're fact finding and doing all this, you want to listen for sure 80 to 90% of the time and take notes, okay? You have to take notes, whether you're on a tablet or you have a system to notate this in. Taking notes is key because you're not going to remember every conversation after you have a bunch of leads, okay? So you got to keep asking these open-ended questions, though. Just avoid the yes and no answers. Is your house in great shape? Yes. You know what I mean? That's not a good answer. So, a lot of times I'll just be like, okay, tell me about your house, and they'll just start spilling it out. Okay, tell me more, or tell me more about that specific thing. Okay, something like that. So now let's go over the wholesaling buying and selling formula. Now these aren't perfect. I've done videos on this as well, but these are going to get you started, okay? Get you a good idea. So the first thing we got to do is establish the ARV, the after repair value, okay? That's the most important thing in this entire process when you're given an offer, okay? Because if you don't know the ARV, you're not going to know what to offer, okay? But you have to know the conditions so that you can kind of guesstimate on how bad it could be. But you got to know the ARV first, okay? So this is the number. This is the number the home would sell for retail, basically, the ARV, okay? Like, what would it sell after a flipper fixes up perfect condition, brings it up to current standards? What would that sell for, okay? That's really what the ARV is, okay? All fixed up. The buyer paid retail and plans to live there forever. That's what you're looking for, okay? So let's go. Here's what we do. These are where we check these things. Realtor.com, Zillow.com, Redfin.com, and PropStream.com. And again, I do have a PropStream affiliate link in the description. If you're interested in that, I'm not trying to pitch it at all, but if you're going to use it, definitely use my link because it would help you. It does give you a free 7-day trial, but we use PropStream every day, all day. Our acquisitions do, because that's how we find all the buyers, and all the sellers, and we're analyzing these deals and we're comping them and those kind of things, okay? But we also buy out of our lists from there, so that's really beneficial. But anyways, let's go over this. So this is a training where I want to actually show you, okay? I got a link on here for a particular property for these three right here at least, okay? Realtor.com, let's go to it. So here is this property. The location is 5412 South Rockford Avenue in Oklahoma City, okay? Now look, they're saying that the property is worth $98,000, okay? Is that true? We don't know. But let's click on the other link here. Whoops. Let me go back to the X-Mind map here. Now we're going to click on Zillow. So Zillow shows that same property is worth $71,100. So we've got Realtor.com. It's a big difference, $98,000 to $71,100, okay? So let's go to Redfin. What do they say? Now Redfin is actually showing 66,000 right there. So we've got 66, we've got 71, and we've got 98. So why are these so different? It's because they all formulate um, their own processes. They're all different, right? Who knows how they actually do it, but they all have their own methods and madness, right? So what do you do? So what we typically do is we'll take that 98,000. Okay, I'm gonna get my calculator out while we're doing this, just so we see 98,000, and we're gonna look at this 71 whoops, 98,000 plus 71,100 plus we're gonna look at this one too, which is the Redfin 66,011. Now we're gonna add all three of those up and divide it by three. So the average of those three is $78,000. Okay, 78,370 is the average. Now, is that perfect? No, but that gets you started. So in the conversation, when you're first starting, you don't want to take a lot of time because we can't buy every property, right? You're not going to get every deal under contract, but we have a good idea of, okay, when you're talking to the seller, okay, this property is worth around 78,000. So if they're wanting 30, 40, 50,000 based on your conversation and the condition, maybe that's a deal, maybe it's not. Okay, but once you dig into it more, you actually start having a better conversation, then you can actually go to PropStream. That's why I said PropStream is beneficial. But let me go back to Redfin real quick, and I'm just going to copy that address, and I'll just show you in PropStream how we actually do it real quick. Okay, so let's go to PropStream. I'm going to have to log in probably. And so once you're logged in, at the very top, well, first you have to click off of the little thing that they have there. So you put the address in at the top, and it's usually going to show it underneath. You just click on that. Okay, once it populates, it's going to show you what their idea of what they think the property is worth. Okay, but you want to click on details right here. See where my mouse is right here? Click on details. Now they're saying that the estimated value is 89. Our average was 78. Okay, what's correct? We don't know. Okay, but cash sale was done recently. Now this is a property that we tried to get, a couple of years ago actually, and we ended up losing this till we went to court over it and everything. It was a long story, but here's what you do. Once you get into the property, you go to the comps and nearby listings. Okay, so what you want to do now is you want to click on both, because we want public records, but we want MLS as well. So we're going to click on both. Now your date range, you always want to be in the last 3 or 4 months at least, but just do 6. 6 is probably fine. Okay, so we're going to click back. Today is July 25th. So let's just go to, let's just say March or so. I don't know how many months that is. It's a few though. Okay, now you always want to be within a couple of hundred square feet of the property. So our property is right here. It's a 920 square feet. So this is automatically already set for 736 to 1104. I think I did 250 either way or something like that. Nevertheless, let's look at this property. So our address is 5412 South Rockwood. Okay, so that's our subject property that we're looking at right now. Now here's one for 5420 South Rockwood. Now all these green marks right here are cash purchases. Typically is what those are. Okay, so 60,000, 67, 68, and 32. And then there's other deals here that have sold on 5 of 20. So that was a year ago, a little over. This one just sold recently for 40. So anyways, this kind of gives you an idea of what people are paying, okay, for the property. And then these higher ones are typically a flipper. So we can look at these pictures like this one right here. 103,000 is what this sold for. So let's look at these pictures and let's just see, is this a house somebody flipped? It looks pretty nice on the first picture. It's looking really good. They probably staged it potentially. So yeah, it's got hardwoods, got fresh paint. The appliances are great. They've staged it nice. Doesn't have brand new cabinets, but they painted them and it looks good. So this is definitely probably a property that somebody flipped and they got $100,000 out of this deal. Okay. And this property is on the same street. So we know that this is a good comp. But is it comparable as far as square footage? Yes, it is. 991. So this is probably the exact same property almost, you know what I mean? So 103 would actually be a good bet on this deal when we thought it was 78. So 78 is your initial. When you're first talking to a seller, we're going to just guess that it's 78 to 80,000 ARV. But then when you're deeper diving into things and you're really having a good conversation, you know that there's some higher comps in that area. There's 95, there's 103, there's 111, there's another 95. So there's good comps in this neighborhood for sure. And you're already looking at what buyers are paying, 32 to 67 probably in that ballpark. So based on your condition, that's where you might want to be. Okay, so that's how that is. So any guesses on what what we could get for this property? So I would just say, after deep diving into it, maybe the ARV is closer to 100. Okay, so it gives you an idea on what you could actually do. So let's go over the wholesale buying formula now that we know how to establish the ARV. So the buying formula is simple. The quick and dirty, at least, is 0.5. You're basically dividing by 2. Then you're subtracting your wholesale fee, whether that's 5, 10, 20, whatever you want to make. Okay, let's just say it's 5,000 for this example. So your maximum allowable offer, your MAO, your maximum buying price on that particular property would be what? So if you take that 100,000, let's just say it's worth 100, you're dividing by 2, it makes it 50. Then you're subtracting your fee of 5. That means your max offer is $45,000. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. So your wholesale selling formula, selling this to an end buyer, would be exactly divide by 2. That's your selling price, okay? Because this one factors in your fee, and this one is what you sell it for, okay? So if your MAO is 45, that means you could market this property for 50 based on this quick and dirty method, and that's kind of it right there. Because your end buyer, who's going to make, going to be doing the repairs, is typically going to need to make 25 to 30% profit, and that's different in different markets. And there is a better way to do this, but this is the quick and dirty. So the true way, depending on your market, again, that's why the quick and dirty way is the easy way and the quick way. But depending on your market, some markets you can actually sell things at 80% of ARV. Some of them are 70%. So I'll go over this with you real quick. So let's just say that same $100,000 house, you multiply that out, multiply by 0.75, and that gives you 75,000. Now let's just say during your conversation it only needed 20,000 in work. You can subtract that 20,000 from that 75, and that leaves you with 55. And now your fee, again, maybe you want to make $5,000. So your MAO in this situation could be 50 instead of 45. So again, based on your area, you can sell things a little higher or lower. But the quick and dirty, anywhere you're at, is these right here. That's your wholesaling buying formula. That's your wholesaling selling formula, okay? So let's talk about leads versus potential deals now. All right, so a lead. So this is your initial stages to gather possible motivated sellers or distressed houses, whatever the situation is. But you get the seller, you can get their info from the county assessor or a website or a free phone lookup service or something like that. Or you just go knock on the door and find out need versus want, okay? The bottom line is, when you have a lead, you're just finding out need versus want. Now, if you find out that they actually need to sell, then maybe that turns into potential deals. Okay, you've spoken to the seller and you kind of know their motivation at this point. You confirmed now that they actually need to sell their property and asked if they would consider a cash offer on their property. Okay, so there you go, needs versus wants. Make sure we covered everything in this slide. I think we did. Hopefully all that makes sense. I know that was a lot of information, but it is recorded. So definitely, rewind if you need to. So the first thing we got to do, now that you know all the basics, needs versus wants and all those things, okay? You know how to negotiate with sellers now. We got to do why, okay? What is your why? Now, You might think this is silly, but it's super important, okay? So why do you want to wholesale real estate? Why do you want to change your life? What is your why? Okay. Most people list their family, but why do you want to do what you want to do? Why do you want to make a lot of money in real estate? And those are the things you got to ask yourself, because keep in mind, it's your mindset first, but then you have to have a why. Like for me personally, my why was I wanted to retire my wife because she's a super hard worker, super stressful job, and all those things. And that was really my ultimate why. Obviously, I wanted to retire her, but I wanted to do it for my whole family as well. And I just want to make a difference, be able to help friends and family out and that kind of thing. Okay. So, how many of you want to start doing this full time? That's the real question. And then have you put a limit as far as time goes on that? Okay. So a lot of people start out as doing this as a side hustle, which is great. You probably want to keep your 9 to 5 at first until you get this really going strong. Or in my case, I started out full time right away because I had a marketing business that was kind of running on its own, and I could afford to do it. I had good income coming in to where I could focus 100% of my time, at least at that time, probably 95% of my time on wholesaling real estate. But so that's key. Have you put a time limit on it? Okay. So if you're starting this out part time or as a side hustle, have a goal in mind. Like, okay, I'm going to do this part time, bust my butt for a year straight. But after a year, I'm quitting my job. So I think that's important to make sure you have your goals written down and put a time restriction on that. Otherwise, who knows? Have a goal so you can try to reach that goal. Like, I'm going to do this in X amount of days or X amount of months or years or whatever it is. Okay. So also, I want to go over like having the right tool is the only way to be successful in anything that you do. And here's why. Okay. So what tools do you actually need to cut the grass, to cut down a tree? I know these are silly questions, but really think about it. So obviously you can cut the grass probably with scissors, right? And you could probably even cut the grass with a weed eater. But are those necessarily the right tools for the job? Probably not. Especially when there's a mower, right? There's a lawnmower that you can use. Or even if you have like acreage, is a push mower the right tool for that? Probably not. Maybe a riding mower or even a tractor. Okay, you kind of get my gist. Even to cut down a tree, yeah, you could probably cut down a tree with a hacksaw. Might take you hours and hours or days or weeks even, because that's crazy. Or you could get a chainsaw and cut it down pretty quick, right? So does anybody know what a confused mind actually does? Just a guess before I reveal what the answer is. What does a confused mind do? Maybe you've guessed it. Nothing, right? Absolutely nothing. So that's why it's important, in my opinion, to have an organized business, because an organized business is a profitable business. So how do you stay organized? When I first started, I used a yellow tablet, but I was very organized in that method. And I did have a script that I compiled on my own, which I told you in the last video. And then on the back of that script actually has like my ARVs and, what is the property worth on these different sites and that kind of thing. It just gives me something to go off of, so every single seller had a piece of paper that I was super anal about. I actually kept a little folder of all of those different people. So that was kind of my organization at that point. But I will tell you now, our secret weapon is our softwares that we use, hands down, okay? So let's talk about getting leads now. All right, so getting leads. Obviously, you can do driving for dollars, which what we talked about on those 13 motivations when you're looking at those vacant houses and all the different signs of a vacant property. And when you're going out and about and you're looking for those properties, that's called driving for dollars, because you're physically driving in your car, writing those addresses down of all those distressed looking houses with the tall grass or, the obvious distress on the house or the tarps on the roof or the overstuffed, mailboxes, etc. So another way to get leads, obviously, is buying lists. And I've told you before, datagamechanger.com, that's PropStream. That's my affiliate link. If you want to go there, utilize that, great. I'm not trying to sell you anything, and I could care less if you go there or not. I'm simply providing you the tool that I use on a day-to-day basis. Also, listsource.com. I've done a video on how to pull lists on listsource. So it is a product that I use. And once again, I never promote anything that I don't personally use myself. So listsource.com is a great place to buy lists. There's multiple other places out there, but these are the two that I'm telling you about because these are the two that I actively use all the time, okay? So getting leads, you can do outbound marketing or inbound marketing, okay? So outbound marketing is what you hear a lot about, in which I do in my business as well, cold calling, okay? There's cold calling, text messaging, or ringless voicemail. All right, so cold calling obviously is picking up the phone and you're calling a specific list that you paid for, or you're calling a list that you did driving for dollars, okay? Now keep in mind, once you have these lists, you do have to skip trace them to be able to find the phone numbers, okay? There's tons of different places out there to skip trace properties, but the bottom line is you need to get the phone number to be able to call or to be able to text message, which is also called SMS in this industry, or ringless voicemail is known as RVM, okay? So you have to actually have phone numbers to be able to do these methods, but that's outbound. That's more cold. All of these are cold. You're hoping for a callback, okay? So let's talk about some inbound marketing methods, okay? So you can do direct mail that we talked about before, and that's physically sending a mail piece out, whether that's a letter or a postcard, hoping that they'll give you a call back, okay, that they're interested in selling their property. Or you can do radio ads, you can do TV ads, you can do billboards, bandit signs. If you don't know what a bandit sign is, it's those signs that you see on the side of the road that says "We buy houses." They call them bandit signs because they're technically illegal pretty much everywhere, okay? Now, whether they enforce that or not is a different story. That's why bandit signs kind of are popular when people are starting out, because it's easy. But you always want to kind of do it on a Thursday night or Friday night because the sign police don't work on the weekends, okay? These are usually city employees just out taking these signs up and throwing them away is what they do. So if you can put it out on a Thursday night or Friday night, you're hoping that it'll last the weekend at least when everybody's out and about looking at the signs, okay? Otherwise, they're probably going to get thrown away and they're not going to be there on Monday. Or you can do Facebook ads. I'm a believer in Facebook for sure. So Facebook is always good. PPC, which is known as Google AdWords. So that's real strong. And I do most of these marketing methods that we're talking about right here. I don't do TV or billboards, but I've done everything else. And I still do have a few bandit signs out there. And then referrals is always huge. Like, who do you know? Like we talked about in the last video. Who's in your inner circle or people in your inner circle that may know someone that has one of those 13 distresses? So referrals are huge. And even after you do a deal with a seller, asking them for referrals is huge too, okay? So let's talk about organizing your leads. So this is where our softwares come into play. And again, I'm not promoting any softwares at all out there. I'll probably mention some that I use, but I could care less if you use the ones that I use. I'm just telling you what we do. And I do feel that a software, once you get going, it's not necessary at first. And because like I said, I did several $100,000 on a yellow tablet before I ever even had any kind of systems, okay? But organizing leads, it'll definitely help you. But here's how we track our leads. We track leads through 5 different stages, okay? So here they are. Obviously, our acquisition and lead manager, sometimes this is the same position. Sometimes people have this as 2 different positions. In my business, I use the same person. It's an acquisition manager, but they're also, the lead intake manager, if you will. But most likely what you have now, is these type of leads. They're just leads, okay? These are leads to run numbers, gauge motivation, follow up, etc., okay? They're not really anything else besides simply just a lead at this point. But those leads quickly can turn into opportunities, which the acquisition manager they're the ones that follow up with these opportunities, okay? That's why some people have these on 2 different people doing this job, because the lead intake manager can just kind of, basically they're kind of going through the leads to figure out what can become an opportunity. But I like to have my acquisition managers do that for now, and that could change in the future. But for now, my acquisition manager does that. Okay. So once they actually see that somebody might need to sell, then that becomes an opportunity. Now they're trying to set the appointment. Okay. That's the main goal initially, whether you're doing that in person or by phone. Now, I will tell you, in person is much more effective because if you're right in front of someone, obviously you can read body language, you can kind of see their movements and actions, and you can hear their tonality, and just in person's always better. They see a face to face, right in front of them, a person right in front of them. And in my business we do by phone. We're 100% virtual. And many companies do it that way. It's definitely more effective in person if you can do that, but it's not as scalable, which is why I chose the phone version. Okay. So acquisition managers, obviously their main goal is to set the appointment, but then follow up is everything. I've talked about this time and time again. If you're not following up, people, you're not going to get anywhere at all, period. Now, not just short-term follow-up, but long-term follow-up is key, because remember, not everybody's ready to go right now. So you got to follow up for the long haul. Okay. You want to know how you can turn 80% of your leads into deals? I'll show you. Okay. I've done this little PDF or this little sales stat that I'll show you real quick. It's really cool. And these are just stats that are kind of well known in the sales industry in general. So sales stats here. 48% of salespeople never follow up with the prospect. Did you see that word? Never. 48% of salespeople never follow up. 25% of salespeople make a second contact and stop. Now, keep in mind, what we do is sales. Make no doubt about that. This is a sales business because we are actively pursuing motivated sellers out there, and we're selling them on the idea of trusting us into buying their property. Okay. So it is a sales game with the seller, and then you're selling that property to a buyer. So anyways, 25% of these salespeople only make a second contact and stop. 12% of those salespeople make 3 contacts and stop. And only 10% of those salespeople make more than 3 contacts. Now that's huge, guys, because that just tells you right there, your competition is not as good as you, because most of them are in this 90% right here. Okay. Now we want to be in this 10% to where we're the ones making 3 contacts or more. But check this out. This is pretty strong. 2% of sales are actually made on the first contact. So it's super rare, right? Like the first time you call someone or the first time they call you, you actually get the deal under contract. It's rare, 2%. And that's true because we've done hundreds of deals at this point, and I can only remember one that I think we've done on the first time. It just is a lucky deal, right? So anyway, 3% of sales, sorry for the misspelling there, 3% of sales are made on the second contact. So it's still pretty rare. It goes back into that, that's why you got to follow up more. And then 5% of sales are made on the third contact. So as you can see, your chances get better and better as you go, okay? 10% of sales are actually made on the fourth contact, and then a whopping 80% of sales are made on the 5th to 12th contact. So that right there, if y'all don't understand that, that shows you that follow-up is everything, because if you can actually follow up, then you're going to be huge. You're going to be greatly successful, because 80% of those sales are done and made after the 5th to 12th follow-up. So that's key. All right, so back to these stages that we keep our leads in. Track your leads to these 5 stages, okay? So transaction coordinator. So now these are deals that are won. So after you have, all of this, okay, let's go back to this. We set the appointment. We're following up, and now we're following up like crazy long term. Now we're actually negotiating. Sorry, we have to back up a little bit. We're negotiating with the seller. Obviously, they're engaged. We're trying to come to an agreement on price at this point. Then eventually we're closing that deal, okay? So once that deal is closed, the acquisition manager's job is done. Now it goes to our transaction coordinator, and these are actually the deals that we won, okay? So obviously the stages for them is they want to send the new contract to the title company or attorney Different states are different. Some use attorney, some are title. Some states do both. Okay. And then they're going to talk to the seller about the whole process of what we do. Okay. So they're just setting their expectations like, hey, I'm the transaction coordinator for the X company or whatever it is. And, I'm going to be your go-to person now throughout the process. Here's what it looks like, blah, blah, blah. Okay. So they're talking to the seller initially right away. Then they're waiting for dispositions to sell the deal. Now, once Dispo sells the actual deal, transactions taken over again. Now they're talking to the buyer about the process. Now keep in mind, you always have to follow up with the title company, the seller, and the buyer every few days. And this is key. Trust me. We've learned the hard way that not you can't always rely on other people to follow up with you. That's why we have to be proactive as a transaction coordinator to follow up with the title company, just letting them know, say, hey, we're still here. How's the title work coming along? Just keeping them reminded that, hey, we're trying to get this done quickly, right? And the same thing, you're following up with that seller, like, hey, Mr. Seller, everything is still going good. We're still waiting on title, blah, blah, blah. You're just kind of letting them know where you're at in the process. And then the buyer, obviously, initially, you're introducing yourselves. I'm the transaction coordinator. I'm going to be your go-to person helping you get this to the closing table. And I'll just tell you that the title company is still working on the title and the abstract or whatever else, okay? So they're just communicating. You have to communicate often or you could lose the deal. Because if you're waiting a week or two, then the seller gets mad and they're like, oh, well, I signed a contract with someone else because I hadn't heard from you. I thought you weren't going to close. Or the buyer's like, oh, well, I assumed, something happened because you haven't talked to me in 2 weeks. Whatever it is, issues can arise if you don't have open communication. So definitely that's our policy in my business. You have to be talking. The transaction coordinator has to communicate with all three of these, title, seller, and buyer, every few days. No excuses. Otherwise, things could go awry, okay? Now, the disposition manager, exit strategy is their whole goal, right? How are we going to dispo the deal? Are we wholesaling this? And if so, they're going to be evaluating this deal now, okay? So they're going to comp these properties just like the acquisition manager did initially when they got the deal, because they're the ones that ultimately decide how much we're going to sell this property for, okay? So they're going to post the deal on Facebook. So you want to look for local real estate investor Facebook groups, okay? In your local community, you could just search in the search bar on Facebook, real estate investors, your city, or wholesaling real estate, your city, things like that. So find those groups, and then you want to post with great ad copy without the address, okay? So you're going to post your deal on there, like, and you want to do something like, hey, I've got a great off-market property. The ARV is 200. We're selling it for 100. Please DM me for questions. Something like that. You don't want the address because that's when people could be snakes and try to steal your deal. That's why it's important to just be in the loop with your buyer and seller at all times, but your seller especially, just so that they know you're still here. We're doing this thing, right? Anyways, then the dispo manager, they email blast our buyers list. Okay, now you can use MailChimp, Constant Contact, ClickSend. We use InvestorLift. I've told you that before. It's dispogamechanger.com. That's why we use InvestorLift, because it truly has every buyer in the nation. So we choose to do that. We do email blast our buyers through that. But after that, our goal is to call all the God mode buyers in InvestorLift. What God mode buyers are, let's just say you have a property. Let's just say it's in Detroit, Michigan. Now, rather than just trying to email blast everybody in Detroit, and you probably don't have a list in Detroit anyways, that's why we use InvestorLift, because you might have some buyers out there. But nevertheless, God mode buyers in InvestorLift will actually show you all of the flips that have happened in that immediate area. So if you want to go to datagamechanger.com, that's great. That's my affiliate link for InvestorLift. You can do that. Like I said, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I don't really care if you use it or not, but I'm just telling you what we use every single day, all day, every day, especially our dispo manager. But even our acquisition manager uses that, because if you got a deal in a small town, and you don't know if there's buyers there or not, our acquisition manager can actually type that into Investor Lift just to see if there's deals there, because it's going to show you all the deals. That's why these are called God mode. It's all these deals in that area. If there's no deals there, we're not locking the contract up. But if you're in a big city, then you're probably going to have buyers. But anyways, we call the God mode buyers. So that's her. That's her kind of her checklist. She's going to run the comps, post a deal on Facebook, email blast the deal, and then call the God mode buyers, and that's what she does. So then, once we're actually under contract to sell, she actually sold the deal to an end buyer. We're just waiting for the closing while following up. Keep in mind, we're still following up with the buyer, as the disposition manager, and the acquisition manager is still talking to the seller occasionally, but pretty much they're out of it. And our TC, our transaction coordinator, is really the one communicating with everybody. Okay, so we're just waiting for the closing, and we're still following up. And then we get to payday. That's the best part. That's what this is all about, right? We finally made it to the finish line. We got that big check that we've been wanting, that big payday, whether it's 5, 10, 15, or 20,000. Could be $50,000 payday. Who knows? Whatever it is, we got to the finish line, and now we just want to repeat this whole process, okay? Obviously, that's the whole goal in doing this. We want to make a profit, right? So hopefully that was beneficial right there. But now let's go over how we actually comp these properties, okay? Because that's important. If you don't know how to comp, then you're kind of stuck. So comping out properties accurately within your CRM is key for us, because this saves us a ton of time. Now, I already showed you how to find the ARV earlier, but when you're comping those, that was kind of doing 2 in 1. I showed you those, how to comp those as well. So anyways, quickly analyzing these deals with automation is key for us, and we can just get through the leads a lot quicker. So our CRM currently just kind of spits out these comps for us, and then comp using the normal websites, obviously is tedious. The websites that we talked about earlier, redfin.com, realtor.com, Zillow.com, and then PropStream, it is tedious. It takes a lot of time, and it's still subjective. Even after you go through all that, you don't even know for sure exactly what you've done. But we've just decided to automate that stuff. We get all that done through our softwares that we use. We've used Podio forever. We've built that out. I've spent $30,000 on Podio, and we actually just bought into a new system recently that we're going to be utilizing very soon. We're not fully up and running yet, but that does all that for us too. That's the whole point of having softwares, to make your life easier. So then you can also store your contract within the system for easy access. Now you can use your CRM to do this. You can use Google Drive, or you can use Dropbox. I'm a huge fan of Dropbox. I've used it in my marketing company for years and years, for 10 years now. So we still actively use that. But also we store them in our CRM too, just so we have a double check. We've got them in both places. So anyway, if I haven't made this point clear, systems run businesses, okay? Now, don't get it twisted, because people run the system. So you have to have really good people to run these systems. Now, CRMs are basically an all-in-one marketing, automation, organization tool built for flipping houses, specifically wholesaling real estate, and keeping track of everything. That's what we use it for, okay? Now, the wholesale purchase and sale agreement. Let's check this out. So I wanted to show you this real quick, just so you get an idea of what these actually look like, okay? Who else gives you this stuff for free? I do, right? So this exact contract right here made me probably $1 million in wholesaling fees. This exact contract. Now you're welcome to pause this and copy this word for word if you want to. I don't care. So this exact contract probably made me about $1 million. So if you want to check that over, pause it, rewind, do whatever you got to do. There it is for you, okay? So it's super simple. It's not rocket science. It's not 15 pages like a realtor's contract would be. It's one simple page, okay? That's it. That's all you really need, okay? And now the assignment contract is just as easy, guys. We don't want to complicate this business. It's one page. This assignment contract, has helped me make that $1 million. This exact assignment right here. Okay. Yes, it does have your fee on there, blah, blah, blah. But that's why if your buyer is uncomfortable with you making, 10 or 15,000, it's probably the wrong buyer. But most of them are uncomfortable with you making 15,000 or more. That's when you just want to double close the deal. And there's a different contract for that. It's very much similar to your purchase agreement, but it's worded differently because um, it's more beneficial for you. So double closing is a little different contract, but 90% of the time you're going to use this assignment contract. So feel free to pause this, click the pause button, rewind, do whatever you got to do. If you want to copy this exact um, format right here, you can. So feel free. But here it is. So I gave you that for free. So that's really it, y'all. I showed you everything that I know about wholesaling real estate. It's obviously it's a pretty big overview. It's still not getting into the nitty gritty, but it gives you everything you need step by step to be successful and to go do this business. So now the question is, what's stopping you? So get it done. You have everything you need now between my 3 videos that I just did for you. From start to finish, step by step, you've got it all. So go out there and make a difference and change your life, change the trajectory of your potential future income and your family's life as well. So anyways, if you've made it this far, thank you. Thanks for watching. I hope it was beneficial. Hopefully you got value. Please subscribe if you haven't already. I just gave you tons of gold. So hit the subscribe button. It would really help me out and I appreciate it. So anyways, thanks a lot and I'll see you guys later. All right, so now we get into the wholesale purchase sale agreement, okay? Purchase and sale agreement. So this is the actual contract, guys. You're getting this for free and you can actually download this. I'm going to give you a website in the description to where you can actually go and download this purchase agreement so that you have it. So there you go. Make sure you subscribe because, hey, I'm giving you guys a lot of free stuff. All right, so here's the purchase and sale agreement. So this is pretty standard. It's a 1-page agreement, super simple. Now, guys, this agreement probably made me $1 million. This exact purchase and sale agreement right here, okay? So it's super simple. As you can see, it's 1 page, okay? So I'm not only going to give it to you, if you want to pause this and copy all this and retype it out, great. Be my guest. But if you want it for free, look in the description, go click on that link and you can download it for free, no strings attached. So there you go. But anyway, let's go over how you actually fill this out, okay? So the parties to this agreement are, so this is where you would put either your name or your LLC. Now, don't worry about it if you don't have an LLC. It's not super necessary. You don't have to have that right away. You do want to get it eventually if you're going to end up doing some, quite a few deals. But initially, don't even worry about it. Just do it in your personal name. It's not a big deal. So you want to put yourself here as the buyer, okay? Even though you're a wholesaler, you're contracting this deal with the seller as the buyer, okay? So you're going to put, the parties to this agreement are Graylan Stewart, herein referred to as the buyer, and seller first name, seller last name. If there's 2 of them, put them both in there. Herein after referred to as seller. So buyer and or assignee. So this is key, guys. The assignee part, and or assignee. This allows us to assign the contract. But technically, any contract is assignable as long as it doesn't say that it's not. So, but either way, we put this in here just for extra measure. But it says buyer and or assignee. That means not necessarily just you, or it could be somebody that you assign this to, okay? Agrees to buy and seller agrees to sell the real estate located at, you put the address here, being located in whatever county, and then comma, whatever the state is, and being more fully described in the records, and then you put the county again, okay? So it's super simple because that's the courthouse, what county the courthouse is in. So your name, seller's name, the actual address of the property, located in what county, what state, and then what county is the courthouse in, okay? Legal description, you can always find this on the county assessor. So you just copy and paste that from the county assessor and put it right here, okay? And then, so basically buyer and seller agree. This is where you put the price, okay? So actually spell it out. It's all spelled out just like you would do on a check, okay? $100,000, dollars is already there. So type out or write out 100,000 and then just put it here, 100, comma, 000.00, just so it's clear as mud, right? And then, it says that the buyer has paid the title company an earnest money deposit of. Now, in some of my videos, I've talked about, what really makes earnest. What makes the earnest money earnest? Okay, like $10. People teach $10, which I've done that in the past, and probably my first 50 or so properties, I probably did, put $10 on here. But we want to make sure we're earnest in case, like I talked about earlier with the wholesaling police on the first video. Those do exist. There are people out there just looking to see you mess up. So put something actually earnest. If it's a $100,000 property, put $500 down. And keep in mind, you don't even have to necessarily put that down, but you want it on the paper because we're relying on our end buyer to put that money down anyways. Okay. So, but if it's a $20,000-$30,000 property, put $100. So we always typically put 100 as a minimum and typically up to 500, no matter whatever else the cost is. So anyways, which shall be credited to, your company or your name goes here at closing. That way you get that money back at closing if you do happen to put money down. And if you don't, they just bypass that, no big deal. So I'm not going to go through all this. You're going to have this to download, but I'm just showing you how to fill it out. It's super simple. There's not a lot of blanks. So down here, time being of the essence, this agreement would be closed on or before. Now, keep in mind, obviously you're going to put the date here. So today is, we're in July. So if you wanted to put August 30th, 2021 or whatever, but keep in mind, you want to put the latest date that you can get away with. Okay. That's the goal here. So what we do in my business, we try to put 90 days, even though we're talking to them like, hey, you can choose your closing. It's a quick close and all those things. And that is our goal. And that is typically what we do. But 90 days just give you the extra protection in case you need more time to assign it. But also, we just tell the seller that, hey, we usually don't even make it a big deal. We just act like it's standard operating procedure. It's not a big deal. If it does come up and they ask like, hey, what's up with this 90 days? I thought we could close this fast. Just say, oh, that's just in case there's title issues or in case, they're taking longer for the abstract or anything else that might pop up to where we need more time. That way we don't have to get another signature later. But hopefully we'll get this done in 3 or 4 weeks like we do most deals, okay? So anyways, if there's any other additional terms that you need, write it in here. For example, seller will deliver the property vacant at time of closing. Because if they have a tenant and you don't want to inherit that tenant and you don't want your end buyer to inherit it, just put it in writing so everybody's clear on it. Or, buyer agrees to allow seller to keep the tenants in place or whatever. Or maybe they're selling you the property because it's their cousin in there and they don't want to evict them. So you'll put in here, buyer understands that seller will have the tenant in place and it is up to the buyer to evict if need to be, or whatever you want to put, something like that. So anyways, you put today's date here, this agreement on, the 26th day of July, 2021, whatever. So buyer print here, print your name or your LLC, whatever you're buying this under, and then you sign it and date it. And then the seller, if there's more than one, then put them all. But if not, just print their name here, they sign it here and date it here. So this is super simple, y'all. You could download this for free. Like I said, print it off, go face to face with the seller, or if you're doing virtual, you can upload this exact document into DocuSign and type all these information in. And then all you have to do is, send them the email for the signature. So it's super easy. Okay. So let's go over the actual assignment contract. So this same assignment contract obviously played a good part in, that first $1 million or so in assignments. So let's take a look at it. And it's super simple, as you can see as well. It's one page, so it's not that difficult. Assignment of contract agreement. Okay, this addendum made on today's date of July 2021. Okay. Property address, the same. You just put it in there, put that legal description in there again. So now assignor and assignee. Okay. You are the assignor because you are assigning this to another buyer. So this top line is for you, your personal name, or your LLC, whichever you decided, and then the buyer's personal name or LLC, however they're purchasing the property. Okay. So the assignor agrees to assign his rights to purchase the attached contract to assignee, in which assignee shall pay assignor an assignment fee. So for that same example earlier, if it's a $100,000 property, we're asking $50,000 because we got it for $45,000. So you would put $5,000 here because that's your fee. Okay. So yes, you're going to put your fee right here, $5,000. Assignee agrees to pay a non-refundable credit deposit of whatever you're wanting them to put down. Okay. Just make sure it's enough to cover what you said you would put down with the seller originally. For example, that $100,000 property, we would put $500 down, and we typically want our buyers putting down $1,500 or 5%, whichever is greater. That's how we do it. So on a $100,000 house, times 5%, that is $500, isn't it? Let me do the math. 100,000, times 5%. Yeah, that's $5,000 right there. So you'd want them to put down an earnest money of $5,000. This just protects you from them walking away later. Because if they do walk for any reason, then you get the earnest money. Okay. But you want to put here your fee in this instance, and you don't have to. Once you have good buyers and you know and trust them, you could put $1,000 here or $1,500 or whatever. You just want to make sure that it covers what you said you would put down with the seller. Okay. So I told him I was going to do $500 down. So let's just say even if we're getting $1,500, that's great. In escrow at your title company name or your attorney's office name right here, which will be applied to the total purchase price due on or before whatever date you had with the seller, originally August 30th, 2021. But we want to try to push the buyer to actually close quicker if available. Okay. Anyways, so the earnest money credit is refundable only if title is not clear and conveyable. So you put that earnest money there again, whatever they're putting down. Okay. So all this you can read at another time. So down here, assignee shall close original contract on or before. So you can put that same date, August 30th here. And if assignee doesn't close original purchase contract by August 30th, again, you put the same date, and then that's there. So if all names that appear in this addendum do not sign it on or before, so this is today's date, and then that's really it. And then assignor, so you're going to print your name or your company name here. You're going to sign it and you're going to date it. And then the signee is the buyer that you're going to put their LLC, however they were closing the property in, their signature and their date. So that's really it. So yeah, feel free to pause this and type it all out, or simply go to the website in the description, and then you can just download this for free, and I'm going to give it to you. No strings attached. So there you go. You'll end up having the assignment fee, the assignment agreement, and the wholesale agreement, both absolutely free. And you also, in the last video, I gave you the script, the actual script that I use. So you'll have all three of those documents. That's the three most important documents that you'll need in this business. You need a script so you know what to say and how to talk to sellers. And then once you get to that point and you have an agreement with the seller, obviously you need a purchase and sell agreement with them. And then ultimately you're going to sign that contract with this last agreement here. So there you go. If you stuck around this long, thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Obviously, I gave you a lot of value, a lot of gold in this. So please do me a favor. Smash the thumbs up, first of all, but definitely subscribe if you haven't already. I would highly appreciate it. I mean, that's just your payment and your thanks to me for giving you all of this free info, and I would highly appreciate it. So don't forget to do that before you click off. Anyways, hope you enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys in future videos. So thanks again for watching. Hopefully all of that made sense. If you watched all the videos in order, part 1, part 2, and part 3, I basically gave you everything you need step by step to learn how to wholesale real estate. So if you can't do it after that, then you probably might need a coach, or maybe you should buy a course or something like that. But hopefully for most of you, that was enough information for you to actually go do a deal. So now take action. You've got everything you need. You've got the contracts. You've got step by step on how I do things in my business, and you can replicate that and duplicate it and do it yourself. So anyways, thanks again for watching. Definitely click the links below if you need to download those free scripts or contracts at all. And thanks a lot, and I'll see you in future videos.